Well, thank you for having us. I'm Lance Porigow from the Shipyard. I'm a business strategist and head up our e-commerce practice as well. I'm going to talk to you about I'm going to do like a really deep individual case study as an example of some of the thinking that we've done, and then sort of wrap it up at the end to kind of demonstrate what happened, if you will. So this is a company called Weleda, which is a Swiss-based skincare company. They are all natural products. They're quite well known in Europe for those that are tuning in from there. It's a 100-year-old brand as of this year, it'll soon to be 101. And they had an opportunity to really relaunch in the U.S., and that's what we'll focus on here is their U.S. launch. And what we did is the issue is that they're kind of a smaller brand, particularly in the U.S. and the U.S. media spend are very, very high. So they were really outspent at least 20 to 1 versus their competitors. So at that point, you have to say, how do we actually market smarter? Because we're never going to outspend, we'll have to outsmart them. And since necessity is the mother of invention, this is essentially what we came up with. So if you start thinking about it from just the heart of the marketing plan, which is the target audience, you've got everyone kind of has tries to define the audience. Historically, you kind of have a very specific audience. You try to get them exactly what you want, to the exact audience that's going to be most susceptible to your message. And the little cartoon kind of illustrates that. But you have this thought that that there's this perfect audience out there for your product, and you're going to focus all your energies and efforts there. In fact, what we're going to talk about here is actually the opposite. But to start, we did start with that process. So here's Cheryl. She is. We did a full segmentation study with thousands of people and had a 6-segment solution, as it's called. And this is like a good starting point for any packaged goods marketer. And from here, we got to know her. We figured out this is Cheryl. We found this picture on the web. It felt like it really illustrated who she was. We call her fearless, fit, and fun. She was 18% of the category buyers, 24% of the share of category, and she spent very high index on using Weleda and spending in natural beauty. So she seemed like she was the perfect audience, and these things are are often pretty accurate. So you can just focus on that audience, focus your dollars and energy, and that's kind of the traditional way of approaching this. So we had this perfect little picture of her, and we had a shrine in the conference room of all the things that she likes to buy. But when you think about it, we knew that she's just an archetype, and she's you may call her one consumer target, but in fact she's really many different women. Even the same person, at any given point during the day is going to have a different activities, different journeys, different things that they're thinking about, and different goals that they have, whether they're working out or at work or with kids or having relaxation time or me time. All these different moments, they have completely different behaviors and different objectives of what they are looking for in that moment. So the reality is that, she's just an amalgam of all these different women, or even of herself. And if we're just trying to connect with her, we have to think about that situation and what she's like at that moment, so how do we actually figure this out? So we started out thinking about, the idea of testing this segmentation in the real world. So if we have this, full big research study, these things cost, 6 figures in US dollars, and so hundreds of thousands of dollars. But even after spending all that, we kind of said to the team that, Cheryl's just a hypothesis. And what people say they do is often very different from their actual behaviors. If anyone's ever done any research where you kind of do what's called a shop along, where you shop in the market with someone and you ask them questions in the aisles, then you go home with them and they put away their groceries and you peek in their cabinets and you see that the things they told you in the grocery store are not actually what she actually has at home. And that's very typical, and because people have an idea of who they want to project them to be, but their actual behaviors are often quite different. So we really wanted to understand how do we actually think about all these behaviors and really pull them apart, and how do we do that? So we said, let's try to find Cheryl in the real world, and to do that, we'd map the consumer behavior to the audience research that we had. So she agreed with statements such as, I'm typically willing to pay more for high quality items. So we found corresponding digital behavior audiences, such as shopping, luxury vehicles, etc. She would say she regularly eats organic food, so we would go and find behaviors online that talk to their interest in natural, organic, cooking and healthy food, diet, etc. So we basically the statements on the left were actually what's called a battery of questions that if you did another set of research, you'd be able to find the fearless, fit, and fun woman, Cheryl, in any place, in any other kind of research by asking these 9 questions. So this is like a statistically valid way of going. And then we found these bridges, and the way we did is we actually built questions into the questionnaire that allowed us to find behavioral triggers online, so we could actually find the audience online. Then we did what we said. Okay, so let's say now we know that we will be able to go out and find Cheryl. But is Cheryl enough? How do we compare against how Cheryl will do against other audiences? So we said, let's find all the possible audiences who might be interested in Weleda, and we'll build out a pretty substantial test online to figure out how Cheryl performs against other audiences. So we have some benchmarks. So we started out with what we know about her from the research. We had obviously tagged on their website. We see who's actually coming to their website, look at their ad engagements and what's happening with people that have bought before. And then we do a data enrichment process. So we take that first party data and we pull that against and we surround that with other data that we know that we can buy and we have access to. And that gives us little what we call microsegments and out of those. So we kind of have lots of different enablers from that. And so what we did is we'd start with every individual piece of data as a separate behavior, and we called each one of them technically an audience, right? And we tested every single one of those audiences individually. So, if I was interested in natural, then that would be one audience. If I was interested in working out, that would be another audience. And we tested all of these individually. And then we started combining them. We said, okay, if we can combine them to create Cheryl, right? So we have a version of what she is, and then combine other audiences that sort of that fit together as well. They get other multi-layer audiences. Then we have this collection of audiences that we can say that are all potential qualified audiences that we can test in the marketplace. And that's how we so we tested them at every level, if you will. And as you combine more of them, the scale goes down, right? So the scale is highest with like 1, and when there's 2, 3, 4, the scale goes down. So you're really trying to balance out the specificity with the scale that you're doing as you're doing these kinds of tests. But in the end, we had thousands of audiences.
Lance, sorry.
Yes.
Sorry. We are seeing just your first slide right now.
Oh, that's not good. I'm on like the 10th slide. Yeah, that's not good. All right. Well, how do we fix that? That's hold on. Hang on. So what are you seeing now?
So now I see a slide above. Oh, yes. So now it's okay.
Now you can see it, but not in presentation mode, huh?
Yeah, so now I see it like in window.
Yeah, okay. Well, if this is okay, we can continue this way. So you kind of missed, yeah, so all you were seeing was that first slide. That's funny.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I can see what you're seeing now. Sorry about that. All right. Well, just as a quick recap, here was Cheryl, and as she said, and then I talked about how she's actually many different women. She's not a real person. She's an archetype. So we had this idea of testing Cheryl as a hypothesis in the marketplace. We matched up the attitudes of her that come out of a battery that statistically finds her, if you will, with behaviors, and we did that through their actual questionnaire that we had in the survey, and then we would take these audiences and then push them through a data enrichment process, which pulls in other data sets, second-party data out there in the marketplace that create microsegments. And this is where I was talking about testing each audience individually, combining them, and then identifying all of them. And in the end, here's the punchline: we had thousands of audiences, but we found 575 audiences that performed well. And which is kind of an astonishing number when most marketers think of targeting, trying to get down to one audience or maybe a handful of personas. So this is a pretty remarkable thing to have 575 qualified audiences. This is not something that you could obviously work with if you're doing it by, manually, but rather you'd have to figure out how to actually use machine learning and technology to actually think about, marketing to this many audiences. So when you look at it, what we found is that, Cheryl performed pretty well. These are all positive performing audiences, if you will. And there's an audience score here. But what we saw is that Cheryl performed well, but she wasn't the best performing audience by a long stretch. So there was all these audiences above Cheryl that performed better than the one that we had spent all that money on that segmentation study. So we said, okay, well, if that's the case, if we've got Cheryl, down here, and we've got the ability to have audiences that are, up to 3 times as effective as Cheryl, what do we do with this? What do we do with this information? And what we said is maybe there's a way that we could target Cheryl, but target all the audiences that are highly performing, all those 575 audiences. And that was kind of our path forward was, because we thought every audience is really another revenue stream. So if we can target all these audiences at the same time, we can actually scale the business much faster. Just kind of a dramatic, different way to go. Now, at this point, usually I get a lot of questions from marketers when I'm in a smaller setting, and they say, how is that possible? And I start thinking about the consumer perspective. And I said that a brand that isn't relevant in the moment when she's looking is just going to be ignored, right? If she's back to all those different moments that we saw her in, before, if she's in any of these moments, if she's running and I'm talking to her about her kids, there's no interest. It's not a time that they're thinking about that. So you have to get them at the moment where you get the right context and the right behaviors and match up with that message itself. Otherwise, we see thousands of messages every day, and most of them don't even break through our protective mindset. So, and then if you think about it from a marketer perspective, can a single brand really be flexible enough to capture the attention of anyone who might want to enjoy it? Like, is it even possible to market to all these? And that's, again, where where you have to think a little bit differently and say, you're not going to have hundreds of brand positionings. You're going to have one brand positioning, but you may have hundreds of support points. So in Weleda's case, they've got over 100 products. They also have lots of different messages, so I think about this as long tail content at contextual scale. So how do you think about what's all the right content that you can use in an individual context? So we created hundreds of ads, and they were just simple, banner ads to start, and I'll show you what happens from there. But we would, we'd had different types of messaging territories, ones that were designed around kids, ones that were talking about claims, ones that featured women, others that featured products, others that featured awards. So there was lots of different ways of messaging, and we took them all, we put them into the marketplace and figured out which matches up to what. And interestingly, it wasn't always what we thought it would be, right? And as we started figuring out, and this was all done with machine learning, what audiences and messages resonated the best, it wasn't always what we thought. So, for instance, the moms audience of moms who, specifically, they were, none of the baby ads rose to the top as the top performing ads, and we were like, but they're moms. But we were also catching those moms in other places. And in fact, they want me time. So there's reasons why that's not necessarily, the exact thing that you think is you're going to do. And that's what we generally do in marketing. We try to think of who's the audience and who we're trying to hit. Now let's hit them with a specific message, but it's not always relevant because you need to think about the context. So what do you do with all that? So with that, you basically start thinking about how do we create creative personalization at scale, knowing that you have hundreds of audiences, in our case, 575 audiences. But we're not going to create 575 campaigns. But we did have enough content to cover all of those, at a macro level. And so we started with testing all the audiences. Then we found the hand raisers. This is actually really the 575 audiences themselves. And those are the ones that said, I've got some interest. And then from those, we can start parsing them out and prioritizing them based on value and their responses and how much money they spent with us. And then you get it down to a handful of key audiences, if you will. And those key audiences are ones that are your highest value audiences. And there's, in our case, we had about a dozen of these. And these are the ones that we built actual micro campaigns against, because basically we were spending low spend on the ones to the left side. And as we got more confidence in the return and the value of those audiences, that's when we spent more. And we doubled down and said, we're going to build full micro campaigns. We're going to have, think about how the brand campaign specifically tracks to them. Think about who our casting is. Build campaigns, display and remarketing campaigns, social media campaigns. Think about how we're going to treat them from an email. Think about different landing pages, etc. So that we would build those out, but only for the subset that we knew were the most valuable customers. And then what we do is we would translate the brand into the voice for those different audiences. So this is one of the audiences. We called her the New Year's Eve resolution. So this is someone who made New Year's Eve resolutions, and she was interested in pseudoscience and philosophy. And so she would be interested in horoscopes and the moon cycle and whether Mercury is in retrograde. And so she's very different than the mom's audience, different from, sometimes we call her Sarah, Cheryl, and celebrity influencer audience, and ones that are really about nightlife, right? So these are like red carpets types. Then we would build campaigns that look very differently. So for the New Year's Eve resolution pseudoscience audience, we did a whole campaign around self-care and your zodiac sign, right? So, and this was probably their most effective campaign we've done. We did, hundreds of different ads, and this campaign rose way to the top. It was A, our most important, most valuable audience, and B, we built creative that spoke exactly to what they were most interested in. So this is one example of how you might customize and build a micro campaign, at a high level. This is the cultural cachet. These are people that are interested in nightlife and celebrities. And so with these folks, we had a nice advantage quiver in our feather, is that we had a number of celebrities that actually use our product, Weleda Skin Food. It's like an iconic product, and it's used by by tons of celebrities. They talk about it in the press. We don't pay them, so we can't talk about them overtly in our messaging, because they're just actual endorsements. But what we did instead is said, let's get more of them, because they're really helpful. Whenever we see a PR hit, we see a pop in sales, right? So when Julia Roberts announces that she uses Skin Food, or Dell or Victoria Beckham or whoever, we always see that in our results. So we said, all right, let's encourage that more. So one thing we did is we did a program, because we couldn't afford the celebrities. We did a program with makeup artists to the stars, and we worked with them as influencers, and they would, and a lot of them already had Skin Food in their kit anyways. So they got free Skin Food, and they got and we encouraged them to post, and then of course they used it on their celebrities. So this is Jo Baker on the left, and she's the makeup artist for Lucy Boynton, and who's pretty much always in the in the Golden Globes, and basically so we got a post from Joanne Baker, we got a free post from Lucy Boynton about her product itself, and then that would get tons of press. And then what we do with that is, when the press is out, we would actually just use native ads that would push to the article just to get more eyeballs on it. So this one was an article about Skin Food, the $19 moisturizer that might be the most popular in Hollywood. All of a sudden, that kind of a headline was gold. So we just drove people to that article, and then we ended up doing advertising on people. So we kind of drove it full circle, but we did it through content. And this was how one of the major ways we would focus on the cultural cachet. And the last example I'll give is around around moms. And so there's moms that are really interested in pseudoscience and natural and all this stuff. Doulas is actually a really interesting opportunity. So we use doulas as our way of sampling and influencers. And we did programs with doulas. We gave them kits. They gave them to their customers. They did posts for us, and then we synced it up all the way to Target and in store. So we kind of had a program with their baby registry. So this was an example of how we did, focus on the moms, if you will. So those are some examples of sort of some of the micro campaigns that we played with, just to give you some context. The results of this is, as I guess as the title is, we had these micro campaigns that had incredible macro results, had growth across the board. We were originally just in Whole Foods and natural channels. We got into Target, Wegmans, Amazon, CVS. We're really distributed just about everywhere now, and so that retail growth has been incredible. And then on Weleda.com, we have every year we pretty much increase the business 50%. It's up 300% right now. And then the skin food product I was talking about with the makeup artist is, it's gotten sales growth of over 290%. It's the #1 personal care SKU for natural brands. And then with the influencers, we have people coming in and they're looking to come into our network. So we at first were hunting them down, and now they came to us. Excuse me 1 second, ma'am. Sorry, I'm in a hotel and the housekeeping's here. So then the anyway, so then the in terms of like the they call it the hockey stick chart, where we were declining before we got involved, and now we're at an 85% CAGR year on year. So that's a little bit about it. I'm gonna try to share a video. I'm not sure how the sound will go, so you guys can guide me. Sometimes A, I'm in a hotel room, as I said, and B, the streaming of video is sometimes a little bit tricky, but it kind of brings the whole thing to life. So hopefully this will work for you.
I will try to help if something will go wrong.
All right, let's try it.
No, we have no sound from the video.
No sound then. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's not good. Yeah, I know how to do it on like a Zoom, but I'm not sure how the sound flows through on this. How do we do this here?
But you can hear the sound yourself?
Yes. Yeah, I can. Strangely. Yeah, usually on Zoom it has a little button that tells you how to push the sound through, but we might have to skip it if it doesn't work.
It's strange. But yeah, maybe we can look without maybe with your commentaries.
Sure. Yeah, I can try to do that.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, sure. All right, let me try that. Maybe that'll work. All right. This is about Weleda, and they're really having trouble capturing category growth. I'll spend 20 to 1. Did you hear me on this? Was that even working? Did you hear my voiceover?
Yeah, but a little bit strange.
Yeah, I didn't think that would work because I can hear it on my side. It's really odd. All right, here's the other thing I can do is I can grab a link and put it into the chat. That would help people on their own.
Okay.
How about that? Give me a sec. Here we go. All right, let me do that. All right, how do I do this in the chats?
So everybody will be able to look to this video on YouTube, yes?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's on Vimeo, but all right, how do I drop a chat here? Restream.
You can drop in private, and I can drop it.
Okay, there we go. All right, you got it. All right, cool.
Okay, I will copy it and paste here. So everyone can open the URL in the chat and watch this video. Okay. So, and I just think we can have a little comment on this video.
Sure.
For people to understand that.
Yeah, let me know when people have finished, and I can.
So maybe I can even try to share my screen for this for a minute.
See if that works.
1 minute, please. So I will do like this. Okay.
That works.
European natural beauty brand Weleda struggled to capture category growth after being outspent 20-1 by competitors. So we used data science and creativity to outsmart them. Rather than relying on what customers say, we studied how they behave in real life with a massive real-time message test with millions of customers. This allowed us to earn while we learn. We harmonized tens of millions of data points and hundreds of messages to uncover what was most motivating to Weleda buyers and what wasn't. Turns out when you're learning what works in real life with millions of real customers, you get insights far more potent and certain. We uncovered 575 sub-segments. We discovered common blogs, charities, beverage consumption, and shopping habits. Some groups were politically motivated, others practiced yoga regularly, and many were inclined to make New Year's resolutions. Weleda was a daily dose of nature to get them all back in balance. The Inner Nature campaign was born. Weleda's plant-rich lifestyle and philosophy of mindfulness help customers reconnect with the nature inside of us to let beauty shine through. And who better to help tell that story than well-established natural beauty influencers who are already Weleda users? We hosted half-day content capture sessions with each of them, and for the cost of a single 30-second commercial, generated over a year's worth of authentic story content. From continuous experimentation to programmable bidding to custom algorithms, the campaign is designed to programmatically optimize the best messages for every audience to drive the best outcome. Make that beautiful outcomes. In just 3 months, Weleda saw double-digit growth in consumption and leapfrogged over 5 competitors to claim the #4 spot in the category. Further proof that when data science and creativity get together, we engineer beautiful things.
Okay, so here it is.
All right. You want to pop my screen back up a few more slides, and then we can take questions.
Mm-hmm.
All right. All right. All right. So what's happening here? So the really, I guess the thing that's really moved in marketing overall is, moving from what was happening in the past to really the future. So in the past it was all about mass media, and still obviously a lot of mass media is used, but much more focus on measurable, addressable media. Before it's very much uninvited intrusiveness towards much more permission value exchange, from spray and pray targeting to really precise deterministic targeting. From syndicated attitudinal data to really using first-party behavioral data, from one message fits all to much more personalized relevance. And I think the thing that's most different is from one audience segment or maybe a handful to really all profitable audiences identified. And that's really the thing that you'll see that I haven't seen any other competitors that we've seen doing anything like this. They may try to get to a handful of personas, but nothing up to hundreds of audiences like this. And so this has actually been something we've been working on for years. We call it No Consumer Left Behind. It's something I speak about at other conferences, the ANA. We're recognized as one of the few agencies considered a programmatic power player 2 years in a row. With Media Posts, our articles are published on Work, which is a global marketing journal. So if you want to geek out more, you can see more about that, but that's essentially what this is all about. You call it the end of targeting as we know it, if you will. So that's where you can find more information about it. So then we can open up for questions. I can unshare, I think, and go from there.
All right. Thank you for this speech, Lance. So we have some questions. The first question is, are your customer emails segmented according to this personal as well?
Sorry, one more time. What's the question?
Are your customer emails segmented?
Oh, email.
Yes, according to these personas as well.
Yes, yeah. We try, not all the time, but we try to tag our database with to connect the emails all the way through to what they responded to. So yeah, and we can do customized emails for different audiences, which we do as well. But yeah, that all kind of comes together in the CDP.
Okay. The second question is, aren't the big spend competitors also doing this, but with more money and resources?
No, not that I know of. I mean, I've talked with hundreds of companies, given this speech, about 30 times, 40 times. I've never had a single company say, oh, we do this all the time. Again, most of them will focus on maybe a handful of personas, and they might have campaigns that focus on that. They might do influencers, but that's different because they'll just do it against their personas, right? So, but doing it at this kind of a scale with hundreds of audiences is pretty unprecedented.
Yes, I think so. A question from me. We were speaking with Justin King about metaverse. And the question is, do you plan to make some like targeting advertising in metaverse, or some plans for metaverse?
We haven't thought about doing that yet, or we haven't ventured into doing that. We've considered it, but we haven't gotten too far. I think it's we are a fairly small budget brand, so experimenting when things are on the bleeding edge sometimes is not efficient for a company like us, but we will as it kind of gets a little bit more established and the rules are sort of there. A lot of what we do are take the existing channels that have a lot of scale, and we break the rules to find different ways of approaching it.
Oh yeah. All right. And second question from me, if in New York or in London for some time there were trash cans that are like where reading your trash that you put in them, and they can show you the targeting advertising too. So what do you think about it? Will it be in future, or will it be not? Things like this.
When you say ads from people looking through your trash, is that what you're saying? Or
I'm speaking about maybe some kind of information that advertising will gather from people activities.
Well, yeah, I mean that's all changing, obviously, with everything that's happening with privacy at the moment. We're moving into more of a permissioned world, so we have to have a value exchange. If I'm going to give you some information, if I'm expecting some information from you, I better give you something back that's of value, right? So, yes. So finding activities online where people can trade their information, not overtly, but they know if so we do like product selectors for Weleda. We've got over 100 products, so we do a quiz with them. They give them, and then we help them to find the right product for them, and that's in exchange for information. So that kind of thing is a lot more valuable and more transparent than sifting through people's garbage. So
yes, I think so. Another question: are you agree that simple assets for ads work better now? All had enough of sophisticated ads.
Yeah, I think I think there's different needs for different channels and different moments, if you will. We use a lot of simple ads, especially for retargeting. Dynamic ads are really productive, so you don't need to have a big splashy thing all the time. I think not doing a big splashy Super Bowl ad is not necessarily the most important thing. Having content that's created that's relevant for an audience, that will be relevant in a specific context, that is helpful. I don't know if you would call that a big splashy ad or not, but I think that it is quite productive, and you can do that efficiently, especially with an influencer. But you got to work on it, at least like using an influencer platform and just throwing it out there and hoping you're going to get it to work. We use influencers as a partnership and build content specifically with them.
Yeah. So if we got no more questions, then we will go through our next expert. Okay. Thank you, Lance. Thank you very much for this great information.
Thanks for having me.
We'll meet on other events.
All right.
Have a nice day. Have a nice day.
Bye.
Bye-bye.